Hi, my name is Kruno Golubic. Thank you for joining me today. Today I would like to talk with you about my path to becoming a technical writer. Last year I've attended Write the Docs conference in Prague. I was really hoping that I would meet all of you this year in person, but unfortunately this year Write the Docs is only online conference. And last year I've heard some great talks on the conference. I've talked with a lot of different technical writers, people from the IT, and it got me thinking, when exactly did I become a technical writer? What is that defining moment when I realized, hey, I'm a technical writer? So today, I would like to share with you my story. The title of my talk is From Graffiti Writer to Technical Writer. I will try to show you how did some things which happened 25 years ago have influenced my life, and how because of those decisions, today I call myself a technical writer. So first, I would like to tell you a little bit about what am I doing today. Currently, I'm employed as a contractor for the company called On The Go Systems. On The Go Systems develops WordPress plugins, and I'm a part of the documentation team there. I've been working with On The Go Systems for the last couple of years. And On The Go Systems is actually the first place where in my contract it has said that I am a technical writer. There is one very simple question that you have been probably asked 1,000 times. What do you write? If you ask a technical writer that question, you will get an answer like, I write documentation, I write erratas, I document API, I'm helping marketing team with blog posts, etc. And if you were to ask a graffiti writer that same question, what do you write? You would get a totally different answer. The answer would be their name. What do you write? What do you write on the wall? What do you write in your sketchbook? What is the connection between graffiti writing and technical writing? Well, for me, this is actually a story of two loves. As you know, true love lasts forever. And one of my first loves is IT. When I was about 10 years old, I got my first computer. It was ZX Spectrum. I've learned some of the basic programming things on it in the programming language called BASIC. And then my next computer was Commodore 64. And I wanted to learn more and more about that wonderful world of computers. I got myself a light pen so I could write on the old cathode screen and that image would show up on it. I got floppy disks for the Commodore printer, everything that I could get my hand on. And when the time came that I had to decide to which high school will I go, it was an easy choice for me. I decided I want to go to high school that is related to the IT. And I was lucky to find such school and I've enrolled it. So when I started going to the high school, in the high school we have had PCs. But at home, I've still had my Commodore 64. Around that time, the new network has emerged called Internet. Internet has come to Croatia in 1992, and I first used it somewhere in 1994 or 1995. I'm not quite sure. So just a couple of years after it became available, I was using it. And the Internet is the reason why am I today in the IT? When I was third grade, a friend of mine has got permission to maintain school's website. And he has asked me, look, Kruno, would you like to have your own personal web pages on our school server? At that time, I was already doing graffiti and I've really loved them. And I've told him, yeah, I can create my own website. But the topic would be graffiti. Is that okay? So we have checked. The school has said, yeah, it's okay. and he has helped me to create first version of my personal website, and that website was dedicated to the Croatian graffiti. Since at home I didn't have a PC, when I wanted to use the internet, because I couldn't connect to the internet from my Commodore, I didn't have modem for it. I had to go to the University and Computing Center in Zagreb. This is the place where you could come, and if you were a student, high school or university student, you can get an account. And you could use their terminals or graphical workstations to connect to the internet. There were, if I remember correctly, 2 graphical workstations. One had black and white screen, the other one had a color one. And there were about a dozen terminals. Some of them were black and orange, the other ones were black and green. And then you would get there, you would sit on a chair, wait maybe sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 2 or 3 hours to get a seat so you could connect to the internet. Most of the time I was on the text terminals. Those were VT320 and IBM 3151 terminals. And the operating system to which they were connected was Unix. At that time, I knew only DOS. And when I came for the first time to the University and Computing Center, people there have told me, look, if you want to use internet, you have to learn Unix. And I started learning Unix. Because of it, when I bought my first PC, I had only one prerequisite. I've said, okay, I'll get a PC, but it must be able to run Linux. At that time, I wanted to learn more about operating systems, the way that they work, the networking, everything. And you cannot find a better choice for that than Linux. As a senior in the high school, I had to write a final thesis. And the topic of my thesis was Linux. Now when I look back at that time and that thesis that I've written, that was actually my first technical writing. I've written 77 pages about Linux, how to use it, how to install it in the environment of our school's classroom. The goal was that the next year, when we would no longer be at that school and the new generation of seniors would come to our computer labs, so they could recreate the environment and set it up the same way. And in my thesis, among other things, I have given my view and my perspective of the Unix man pages. You know, Unix man pages are a really great resource. But at that time, you know, I was 18, I knew everything the best in the world. I've said, yeah, I don't like the way that man pages are organized. I would change this a little bit. So that combined with all of the instructions on how to set up computer lab again, I would say it would constitute as a technical writing, because I was changing the existing documentation, I've added something on my own, I've written clear instructions for somebody else. But at that time I thought, okay, this is just school writing. If it weren't for my love for graffiti, I probably wouldn't learn Unix, or at least I wouldn't be so interested in web servers, creation of web pages and everything. Because of my love for graffiti, I wanted to create my own website. And I did it. I created a website called Croatian Graffiti Pages. And at that time, it was the only website here in Croatia that was dedicated to graffiti. I got lucky that I got free hosting at the biggest graffiti website at that time, graffiti.org. And for some time I was even volunteering there and helping maintaining the sketches section of that website. Croatian Graffiti Pages wasn't the only website that I built that was dedicated to Croatian graffiti. When I was finishing up my first university, as my final thesis, I got an assignment from my mentor to create a website about Croatian graffiti. And as part of the thesis, I had to describe the tools and ways that I've used them to create a website. I also didn't consider that to be technical writing. It was, again, academic writing. Graffiti have brought me to Linux. And because of the Linux and the whole open source community, I got my first job. I became a system administrator. When I became the system administrator, I had to write some kinds of instructions for the new users who would come. I would have to, write down the notes on how to set up the network configurations, etc. But for me, that was part of system administration. It wasn't writing for me. I've spent almost a decade of my life working as a system administrator. After that, I've switched to jobs that were more human-oriented. First, I was a teacher. I've taught kids IT in primary school. And after that, I started working at University and Computing Center. That very place where I first met internet, where I started using internet, I was lucky enough that I got the job there. So now, when I look back at that time, it's like some 15 years later, I walk into the same building, but this time I wasn't the one who was going to use the internet. I was the one who was going to help others. I've spent 11 years at University and Computing Center. I started as a help desk manager, and when I was leaving, I was the head of user support department. During that whole time, I've done a lot of writing. I've written dozens of blog posts that were related to different IT topics. I was author and co-author of several IT courseware books, materials. Those courses are still being held today, some in the classroom, some in the online form. I was also an editor, a reviewer, but all of that didn't say technical writer to me. To me, that was a part of user support, same like creating FAQs, same as creating knowledge bases, using different authoring tools to provide information to our users. For 10 years, I was IT system administrator. Then, for the next, let's say, 10, 11 years, I was working at user support. And then the big change came. I got my first contract where it said technical writer. So for the past 2 years, I'm working as a technical writer. I'm working on the documentation, I'm working on the videos, I'm helping out the marketing team, I'm working on some SEO related tasks. So basically, things that most of you do also on day-to-day basis. Now that we have come to my technical writing part, where do I see the connection between graffiti and technical writing? It is not just in the fact, for me personally, that because of my love for graffiti, as I've said, I got more involved in the IT world and with the internet networks, computers, and everything else. But it is also the way that products are created. If you take a look at the graffiti, you can call it a product because it is a product of creativity, of someone's imagination, someone's desire to produce, to create something. And you can do it alone or a member as a team. In graffiti writing, team is called crew. I was a member of one graffiti crew. There was 9 of us in that crew at that time. And each of us has its strengths and weaknesses, Someone was great at doing letters, somebody else was great at doing characters, someone was handy, with a brush or knew how to get letters that were high enough so we could reach the high points. You could say that each of us has had some kind of specialization where he was the master of it in graffiti. And when you take a look at the documentation teams, they often work in the same way. You have someone who is producing the text, somebody else is perhaps handling multimedia things, screenshots, videos. Somebody prefers writing documentation, others perhaps are more inclined to, I don't know, documenting APIs and stuff like that. So, but when you combine those things together, you get great documentation team and you get great documentation. So we have teamwork in both situations, in graffiti world and in documentation world. One other thing that graffiti and documentation also have in common, in both situations, we need some kind of tools, some kind of supplies that we use. In graffiti world, if you have ever encountered graffiti, your first thought would be probably writing on the wall with a spray can. But that is not the only form of the graffiti. Graffiti are usually first born in the mind of the artist. Then the artist takes the paper, the pen, pencil, marker, and transfers it, creates a sketch. We do sketches in little notebooks that we call sketchbooks, and we keep them there. We usually have two sketchbooks, you know. One is like a guest book when you meet someone new, some new writer or someone that you admire, and you give them that sketchbook so they would draw something in it, like a memorabilia for you. And you have one, your working sketchbook, you know, that will become your portfolio one day. And from that sketchbook, you pick ideas that you want to transfer. Transfer them where? To some kind of surface. It is not always the wall. It is not always concrete or brick wall. It can be a metal surface, it can be a canvas, it can be even the floor, the asphalt. You know, it all depends where you want to do them. In technical writing, you use all sorts of different tools every day. We start with some kind of outline. We put headings, we know which paragraphs do we want, we fill them up little by little. You use spell checkers, you use Git for versioning, screen capturing tools, screencasting tools for recording videos. Then you edit those images, you combine them, you publish them. Maybe you're using some kind of authoring tool where you can set the destination, you know, you want to create the output, you want to create PDF file, you want to create a web page, you want to create package that will go along with your software. So depending on your final product, you will choose the tools. When you start, in both of those cases, you must have one thing in your mind. What will be the output? Where will the final result be presented? Back in the 90s, when I started doing graffiti, we couldn't find many printed books or magazines about graffiti here in Croatia. So we borrowed books one from another or magazines, you know, just so we can see what was going on around the world. I still have those books with me today. Those are actually reprints and newer edition of books that I had back in the 90s because I made a mistake. I've borrowed my books to someone and I didn't get them back. And when I got a chance, I rebought all of those books because they mean a lot to me, because of my past and because of the graffiti. So I wanted to keep on to them. And in technical writing world, there are certain standards, there are reference manuals that we often refer to when we are in situation how to form a sentence, what kind of tone of voice should we use in certain documents. So we reference those materials. So both in graffiti world and in technical writing world, I would dare to say we have some cornerstones, you know, documents and books which are often referred to. Another similarity that I find between graffiti and writing is the style. Each graffiti writer has its own style. The way that letters will look, colors that will be used, backgrounds, characters, you know, all of that form a style. Style can be rather simple, that anyone can read it, or it can be very complex style, wild style. Style isn't something that isn't changed over the time. Graffiti writers also change their style. They evolve over the time. If you take a look at one artist that has been doing graffiti for a long period, like 20 or 30 years, you will see a lot of changes during that time. In technical writing, depending on the audience, you will choose a style. You wouldn't write in the same way information that it's intended for the end user or developer that will use API to make a product. So you have to adapt your style, your writing, to the audience, to the user that will use your documentation. Take a look at this example. A couple of years ago, I went to a town called Velika Gorica near Zagreb at one culture festival. And part of that festival was graffiti drawing. All of the artists, all of the writers that were there got the same word. The word was spot. And they had to write it in their own style. So here you can see a little collage of those different styles created by different writers. This is the same word written in different ways. As you can see, each writer has its own style. If you were to take two technical writers and tell them, okay, document me this feature, or go out and help out marketing team with forming a new blog post, you would see the same result. You would see the word spot in the end. But the writing that the technical writer A and technical writer B would do would be different. The message will get through, but they will just use words in a different way to form that message. One of the things that I've loved the most about graffiti writing was hanging out with people similar to me. We had similar interests. We were really into that graffiti. We could walk graffiti sites around the town every day. You know, you would look at those walls, the same wall each day over and over again. You would analyze what is new. You would look at those graffiti, you know, thinking, oh, I could do something here, or maybe we should cover that wall. You know, it was great. And there are also meetings of graffiti writers. There are graffiti festivals all over the world. And if you have a chance, you know, and you travel to those places, you will meet nice people. In Croatia, these days, there are several graffiti festivals that are held each year. And from time to time, I still visit them. And in technical writing world, well, we have conferences like Write the Docs. You know, this is the place where you come to meet new people, to learn new things, to contribute to community at pre-conference day, as was one yesterday. So you can see we have this need to be surrounded by people who are similar to us, so we can learn new things and so we can pass on our knowledge to others. What is next for me? So I'm no longer doing graffiti on the wall. I'm just doing them in my sketchbook. But I've decided I want to evolve my style, take it to the next level. So in a couple of months, I will be starting a calligraphy course. And that course will be held by one of the most famous Croatian graffiti writers. So you can see, even if I would want to escape from the graffiti world, I couldn't do it. And now at the end, I would like to try to answer my own question from the very beginning. When did I become a technical writer? When I look at my career in the IT, I've been working in the IT for more than 20 years. I could say that, yeah, technically speaking, I am a technical writer only for the past 2 years. But I've been doing technical writing since the very beginning. So if you're considering a career in technical writing and you think that you have nothing to show up to your potential employer, take a look at everything that you have written so far. Blog posts, some academic writing, instructions for your friends, all of those things could be the very beginning, the seed of your technical writing career. At the end of my talk, I would like to say thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thanks to the Write the Docs people for accepting my talk for this year. And I really, really hope that I will be able to see you in person in Prague in 2021.
I want to say first, thank you for your talk. I think it was really great, especially because I've been in that position where I think looking back now that I've worked as a technical writer, I'm like, oh, I was doing technical writing. I was doing those processes and things, but I didn't realize it at the time. So I'm glad to know that I'm not alone in that experience.
Yeah, and it's hard, as we have seen, last year in Prague, when talking about terminology and everything, how people call us, how they refer to us, there is technical writing in many different areas, and people just don't consider it to be a technical writing. For example, in Croatia, you will not find many jobs where they say, oh, we are looking for a technical writer or something like that, Maybe a couple of dozens of ads have come up in the past few years, but there are a lot of people doing technical writing that they don't even know that they are doing it,
Yeah, definitely. That was me in so many past jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Until I had that title officially, and then I was like, okay, I can own this. Great.
Yeah. The same thing is for me,
Yeah. All right. So let's get into we have a couple questions.
Okay.
So very exciting. So the first one is, when or if work gets really hectic and you're pushed to meet deadlines, do you have any go-to tips and tricks to reach down to creativity and find your creativity even when the situation maybe doesn't call for it?
So I'm very lucky to have a great team lead, that I can turn to when if and when we get swamped with different tasks. So he's my first point, and and he's like a dam that is keeping the water, the tide coming in. So that is the first things that I turn to when I'm overwhelmed with tasks. I would go to my team leader or my teammates, to deal with that. But the second thing is, what helps me a lot is stepping back and switching, at least temporarily, to different tasks, So if it's something that I have to write creative, I would switch to totally technically oriented things, API related things, which don't allow you to be a poet, and which is hardcore, straight down, documenting things by bullets one by one. So that is one thing that helps me the most. Cutting and going in a totally different direction, so I would clear my mind.
Absolutely. Definitely makes sense. And I'm really excited for this next question because I ask myself this a lot. So, graffiti writers tend to sign their work like many artists. Should technical writers also be signing their work? And aren't we maybe already in a way, or what are your opinions about that?
So, yeah, I guess this comes down to the company or the project or startup where you're working. If your name will show up, next to something, I can see, from time to time, if I revisit some sites very often, if I know who is behind the writing, from the style, I can guess who has written that text, because each of us has something that it's unique. Maybe that isn't so visible in technical writing as such, where as is in other parts. If you're blog writing, ghost writing, or something like that, if you're more into copywriting, where you can put more of your personality combined with the style of the brand. But I like the fact when I'm able to put my name onto something, and if it's written publicly, because I'm proud from what about my work. I like the things that I write, and I'm never ashamed of anything that goes out public, because if it's good enough to go out in public, I won't be ashamed if there is my name next to it, because I'm standing behind it.
That's great. I love that level of confidence. I can't say that I feel the same about all of my work, but one day, hopefully. All right. So what team bonding feels stronger to you? The one that a graffiti crew has, or the one that a technical writing team has?
Oh, so graffiti was back in the days. That is now like quarter of century ago, some 25 years ago when I started it. And as a teenager, our lives took us in very different directions. But I can say that still today, I'm very good friend with 3 or 4 crew members from that time. And we still, a couple of us, we still do graffiti.
Cool.
At the moment I am doing them only in my sketchbook. I'm not planning to do anything on the walls in the recent times. So we still do have that connection and bonds. And those are different kinds of bonds because then in the technical writing, first for me, because they're lasting for much more years now at the moment. It's over 2 decades that we are hanging out together and doing things together. But I feel the same connection with my documentation team, because we are not just the team that works together. I work for a remote-only company at the moment, but I had a chance, to meet some of the team members in person, and that is also a great thing. So I couldn't tell that the one bond is stronger than the other, but they were just forged in different times.
Oh, I love that. That's great. All right, we have time for one last quick question. Okay. What is one skill that someone wanting to become a technical writer should focus on developing?
For me, it would be reading and listening, understanding the user requests. What is the goal of that document that you will be creating? What do you need to convey? What is the message that it's need to be put out with the document? So if it was in communication, it would be like listening skills. So here would be reading the requests and understanding what is the actual prerequisite or what is the exact task.
That's really, really excellent advice. I wish I would have had that a few years ago. Thank you so much for joining us, okay. Kruno. I loved your talk, and thank you for being such a willing Q&A answer participant.
Thank you, Caroline, for hosting this Q&A, and greetings to all of the listeners in this room.
Yeah, and just a reminder for everyone, the unconference sessions are going on right now, so feel free to check the integrated schedule and the list of sessions to see which table you want to join, or if you want to host your own, please do. And a reminder that Lightning Talk submissions are happening now. I would highly recommend it. It's nice. It's nice. So if you have an idea, go for it. Do it. All right. Bye, everyone. See you at the next talk.